Okay, hello everyone. So this is us, apparently. Let's talk about the book.
Yes. So what's on the agenda today?
Yeah, well, let's start with how you guys are anyway, before we go anywhere.
All right.
How are
Okay.
things?
Yeah.
I'm really frustrated. That's this coachee, and I felt sure that he had understood what I advised him to change. However, at the next opportunity, you won't believe it, the coachee did something completely different during the lesson. It was as though we did not have the conversation at all.
Okay, I don't get that though. Why would that be frustrating? It seems like this is the natural thing that we would need to expect, right? I mean, when I work with my university students, they make lots of mistakes, and we just, tend to appreciate that they are there and we can learn from them.
Okay. So one thing you need to know about instructional coaching is this. Okay, this is what we do. No, it's not. No, it won't move. You can't see what we do because apparently it's not changing. Okay, so let me start with this one.
So much for making mistakes all the time.
Here we go. First one present. Okay, same to the back one. Okay, all right, here we are. That's us. We do instructional coaching, which is slightly different from what you do at university. So we have loads and loads of feedback conversations. That is, you can see us here. That's Anya, for example, and as the instructional coach, and then you can see the coachee, which is blue. No, who is blue? I'm sorry. Okay, and here you can see both of them having the conversation that they're having, and they do that multiple times. So when they leave university, that is you, Henning, when they leave you behind, that is they get into our teacher training, and then we have these coaching sessions with them, which means that they do a lesson or a crit, what it used to be called, and then we have an instructional coaching session, and that is repeated multiple times. So really what you do is, or what you expect as an instructional coach, is that they actually learn from one lesson to the next, so that they really implement what you tell them. And that is why Anya is so frustrated.
I see. So, I mean, this is clearly about more than just, improving your understanding. It's changing what you actually do in the classroom. Is that the basic idea? So if that's, the complexity of it, then what went wrong, Anya?
Okay. So here's one of the things that we might want to look at. When we do an instructional coaching session, that means that both instructional coach and the coachee talk about the lesson, and both of them have their certain concepts of what happened during the lesson. And the ideal is that when they actually speak about the instructional coaching session, or when they speak about the lesson, they then have they share the same idea. That is, the way that they viewed the actual lesson is very similar, and from that the coachee develops some self-reflection and sets new goals, so that when he does the next lesson, he then puts these goals into practice and thereby develops professionally. And the coach, the instructional coach, that is Anya, then presents in that conversation, presents some suggestions and observations, potentially some questions, or her own thoughts, really.
So generally, these feedback conversations strive for a shared understanding of what happened during the lesson and of what could be improved. The orange part, as you can see here, should be as big as possible. But in that particular situation, there was a mismatch, I guess, between what was said and what was understood. So, in other words, there was little shared understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this seems like a phenomenon that we know to be human nature maybe. But can this be explained somehow why it popped up like this in this case?
Yes, there is this theory about what goes wrong in feedback conversations, and that is published by the authors. Thanks for Sheila, Heen, and Stone. Let me just see if we've got the right presentation here. Yes. They offer this explanation that apparently these conversations strive for a shared understanding, but sometimes there's very little shared understanding because an instructional coach might be using unprecise words or unclear terms, and that is why then that is not really understood by the coachee. So they introduced this theory of labels. They wrote a book that is called Thanks for the Feedback. And in this book, they actually explain what labels are. Okay, let me just tell you what they are.
Yeah.
So both persons here use labels, and it is like a label you find on a can. And let's imagine you go to a supermarket and there is a can that says soup. So you don't really know what sort of soup. It could be a tomato soup or it could be an onion soup. And let me tell you, I detest onion soup. So that would be a tricky business for me, really.
I see. But you're taking me far away from the actual conversation, it seems. What does soup have to do with all of this?
Okay, yes, you're right. Okay, I see your point. Okay, this is actually what they call a label, the soup. The word soup is what they call a label. And in instructional coaching conversations, we have some sort of expert terms that might mean a variety of things. So let's say Anya said that the person needs to improve the classroom management. Okay. And what she meant by that label might have been, it is very important to have all the material at hand, and it's very smart to check the digital board beforehand, and so that you get a flow within the lesson. Then, but as we all know, classroom management can also mean a variety of things. So what might have been heard by the coachee might be something like, oh, your classes are totally chaotic, and I have to be a lot more firm, and I have to enforce classroom rules a lot more. And here you see that there is a clear mismatch between the understanding of what classroom management actually means.
I see. Okay, so that's one example. Anya, would you be willing to talk about what went wrong in your case? What did you talk about?
Yeah, sure. So that is what happened. I just wanted the CE to have the technology ready before the lesson, but he took my feedback on classroom management as an encouragement to become Darth Vader.
Okay, so what are we going to do with this?
Well,
Sandra?
I believe we should collect other labels and discuss what they mean to each one of us.
Yes, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to collect a couple of labels that you or the viewers might be using in their classrooms or their instructional coaching sessions. And we're going to collect them in a flinger, which is a digital board. So let's see if we have our digital board ready. And I switch over to Anya then.
Well, a flinger is a type of online-based whiteboard that is very well suited for activities such as building common knowledge or promoting collaborative brainstorming. It's power-based. You can use it with a computer or a tablet or a mobile phone, as long as you're connected with the internet. I'm going to show you what it can look like. So look at the surface of that fingerboard. So you'll then, of course, type the link that's indicated in the PowerPoint presentation, and you'll reach that board. And what you see here on the desktop are some labels already that we've collected to help you a little bit, to give you some inspiration about what we think of when we're talking about labels in instructional coaching. And now I'm going to show you how to create a new label. So you go to Message, and you, for example, type in Classroom Management, the label that we just had in the presentation just some minutes ago, and then you just click Send, and it will appear on the screen. And so everyone will be able to see it, and you'll be able to then discuss that aspect and share your common understanding of it.
What if I don't like orange?
Yes, you just go up with your little hand, press the color, and for example, choose green. And oh no, I'm sorry, you first have to mark the label, of course. So you see that there is, it's indicated that you're going to change it now. So you go up to the top again and use another color, and then you've reached green, for example.
Thank you, much better.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go back to the actual task. Yes, here we are. Okay, so let me show you the task and the link to the board again. Here we are. That should do. Is it starting the presentation? Yes, here we are. So that's the tasks for the participants and the link to the actual board.
So it would be wise to press pause now for the presentation.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But we'll continue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let me check what's next.
How much time have we consumed so far? How much time did it take us?
I don't know, actually.
Oh,
I think
so
we're
we'll
good.
just have to plow through and see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, so Henning, you keep
Yeah.
going.
Okay, so we have seen misunderstandings, and the potential of finding different ways of talking about things that we were trying to say by using different kinds of labels. But what can both parties in the conversation do to improve that kind of understanding?
Yes, and it's very important here to note that actually both parties are involved. So that is, if you are, for example, on the receiving end of feedback, you might want to use the cues to actually ask for more precise feedback too. It's not just for instructional coaching here. So, but let's start with the instructional coach here, what he or she can do to actually clarify the feedback. That is, you can, as you can see here, you can be very precise about what you observe. That is, you might, during the lesson, you might want to make notes on what someone said or wrote down, and you can then give examples. Sometimes in instructional coaching conversations, you might want to make suggestions. So you could say what the students would advise. You can then swap the perspective towards the students, and you're not just talking about what you would do, but also what might be profitable for the students or efficient for the students. And you could also say what you would do next time I would, or you could say something like, when I'm in this situation, I can do this. When I make suggestions in a coaching conversation, I usually ask the question, can I offer you some of my solutions first? And then the coachee can decide, yes, I would like to take your suggestions or not. And you can also do a practice run. What exactly should be different next time? So let's see what the coachee can do. You can ask for an example. You can actually ask what conclusion someone drew. You can also obviously ask your coach what they would do. And you can ask them to show you. That is the practice element again. And you can also ask who might be a good supporter to actually initiate that change. For example, you might have a student or another teacher in the classroom, and so they might be supportive of you to actually do something different. Okay. Sandra?
That leaves the coachee as the second party then?
Yes. And you actually sort of you can do you can clarify when a label was used. Both parties can actually clarify what was actually meant by that.
Okay.
And that is quite wise. And if both parties had done this, it might have prevented the misunderstanding that Anya just told us. That is someone misunderstanding completely what was meant by using the label classroom management.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So in other words, you ask specific questions and ask the coach to explain suggestions and advice.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, but that was a lot. You can tell from all the different things that the two parties could be saying or asking or doing. So how could I remember all of this in a nutshell?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I suggest that you should use one of the labels collected before, and you could then think of a situation in which this word was used. Using the questions presented in the visual, or please use the questions presented in the visual and create several ways to give feedback.
And please consider what the coachee might be thinking, feeling about the various options to give feedback, and how you prefer to receive feedback when you are the coachee.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this does hint at the potential problem of,
Oh, sorry, Henning. This is just an overview of what could be said or done, and it looks really confusing. I'm with you here.
Well, I mean, I did feel that this is also good news. As always, when you have many different options, that's a much better starting ground than not having a lot of options. Just saying, you might get lucky and create understanding. So I get that.
Okay,
But it does feel that if you need to be specific, you could also come across as rude. So I feel that Sandra's point seems to be very important here, that you would also somehow be aware of how feedback might be perceived emotionally or cognitively. Is that the big idea?
Yes, and that is actually a tricky business when you're a coach. That is, you want to be respectful of your coachee's feelings and thoughts, and really respect what they've achieved up until now and their professional development up until that stage. But you also want them to offer them some feedback to improve. And so this instructional coaching conversation can be, as I said, very tricky. So you might want to discuss how honest you can or should be when you're giving feedback. And for that, I would like to refer to that video of Kim Scott's Radical Candor, where she actually takes a closer look at how honest you should be as what she calls a good boss in instructional coaching. And she actually does it. She's a Silicon Valley lady, so she worked for Google and Apple, and I think there are a couple of aspects that we can actually learn from her to improve our instructional coaching sessions. So please take a look at this video. Which you will also find in the materials. As you can see, they should be available to you if in case you're in the room at the moment. So I think. Anja, would you like to ask for feedback? We discussed that a long time.
Well, we as, of course, a team from Germany are very, very enthusiastic about education, about instructional coaching, generally speaking, about university and research and so on. And of course, it was a great pleasure for us to present our ideas to you. And well, a great honor, of course, to receive your feedback. So here are some questions that we'd like to ask you to answer. That is, what is the one thing we can do differently? So please be as honest as possible, so that we can grow and rise and shine also. For example, also, what new aspects are you going to adopt into your feedback routine immediately? Are there things that you find that fascinating in order to integrate them in your professional life and your procedures? Would anyone of my colleagues take over and ask some more questions for feedback?
As we're here in Germany, what can we learn from Australian instructional coaches? How and what are you doing differently? What works well for your coaching processes? And what are your so-called killer questions? Is there any Australian book, website, resource that we can read about instructional coaching that you would highly recommend? Yeah, and please feel free to give feedback to one of the videos that you have been watching.
One more thing, one little thing, and that is, please choose one question and give us some feedback. As Doug Stone and Sheila Heen, as they say, what's the one thing we can do differently? What would you like us to change in this routine or in our explanation? So, or was there any idea that you like particularly, or any of the questions that you find here? Please send us a message on Twitter, or send us an email, or find us on YouTube. Bye-bye. Okay. Should we all say goodbye? Bye-bye.
We should. Bye now.
Good.